A pregnant girl helped an elderly woman on the street. But her words changed her life forever. The morning sun slowly filled a small hair salon where Sophie stood in front of a mirror, absently fixing her hair. At 27, life should have been full of dreams and possibilities. But her eyes looked tired, almost lifeless. Her hands automatically sorted through her tools, combs, scissors, clippers. Being a hairstylist wasn't just a job, it was her anchor. A steady spot in a sea of uncertainty. James, a name that once made her heart flutter, now felt like a bitter knot in her throat. Their relationship had started 2 years ago. Wild and full of passion. He seemed perfect, a charming accountant, thoughtful and kind. Sophie thought she'd found her forever. But everything changed in an instant. 2 lines on a pregnancy test became the end of their love. When she told James, his face turned cold. "Are you serious?" he said, his voice sharp. "I'm not ready for a kid. Not now." She begged for his support. But his eyes held only annoyance. No trace of the warmth she once knew. "It's your choice," he said. "I don't need this mess." His calls became rare, his texts short, until they stopped completely. The betrayal cut deep, leaving her hollow. Fear grew inside her. Pregnancy was joy, but also a heavy weight. Especially alone. Her hand rested on her barely noticeable belly. Already so important. Work at the salon was her escape. Clients didn't know her struggles. And that was her shield. Each haircut, each style, was a small ritual to quiet her racing thoughts. By the end of the day, exhaustion hit hard. Sophie knew tough times were coming. Doctor visits, preparing for the baby, money worries, all on her own. At night, in her quiet apartment, tears fell, a mix of hurt and fear. But deep inside, a tiny spark of hope flickered. Her inner voice, faint but growing, whispered, "I can do this. I'll be okay. My baby and I will make it." In the silence, those words felt like a promise. A vow to herself, her future child, and the woman she'd become. Tomorrow would bring a new day. A new start. The morning light slipped through thin curtains as Sophie stood before the mirror again. Her belly was rounder now. A clear sign of the changes in her life. Her family's reaction had been cold. Her mother, hearing the news, stayed silent, barely speaking to her. Her father stormed off, refusing to talk. At the salon, where she'd worked for years, things weren't much better. The air felt tense. Coworkers whispered when she passed by. The manager hinted at job cuts, her words stinging Sophie's pride. She kept working hard, hiding her pain. Doctor visits were the hardest. In hospital hallways, other expectant moms had partners by their side. Sophie was alone, each appointment a test of her strength. Money was tight. Her rented apartment, baby supplies, everything added up. She took extra shifts at the salon, working late nights and weekends. Doubt and fear battled inside her, but moments of fierce determination pushed through. "I'll make it," she whispered at night, staring at her reflection. Loneliness hit hardest in quiet evenings. Her phone stayed silent. Friends drifted away, as if her struggles were contagious. Yet, Sophie found comfort in small victories. Each day she got through was a win over fear, over weakness. She was learning to accept herself, flaws and all. The final months of pregnancy brought a shift. Sophie began to see her baby not as a burden, but as a gift. One evening, she felt a gentle kick inside her. "We'll be okay," she whispered, gazing out at the twinkling lights of the city. A new strength was growing inside her. She had a choice, to break or to rise. She chose to rise. A chilly spring morning wrapped the town in mist. Sophie walked slowly, her hand on her growing belly. The day before, she'd been let go from the salon. A flimsy excuse about staff cuts. Another blow, but she held her head high. Near an old brick building, she saw an elderly woman struggling with heavy bags. Without thinking, Sophie stepped forward. "Let me help you," she said, her voice steady. The woman looked up, her eyes kind but sharp. "You're the one," she said softly. "The girl carrying my grandchild." Sophie froze, recognizing her, Margaret, James's mother. She braced for judgment, but instead, Margaret smiled. "Come in, let's have some tea. I'm Margaret." The apartment was warm, filled with old photos and books. "My son is a fool," Margaret said bluntly, setting down a teacup. "I know what he did. And I know you're alone." Sophie's hands shook as she held her cup. Margaret went on. My husband died young. I raised James alone. I know how hard it is. They talked for hours. When Sophie mentioned her work as a hairstylist, Margaret's face lit up. I know people in the salon business. I can make some calls. It was more than help, it was hope. Before Sophie left, Margaret handed her an envelope. Some money, she said, for training courses and to get you started. Tears welled in Sophie's eyes. For the first time in months, she didn't feel alone. Women are stronger than they know, Margaret said, her voice firm, especially when they become mothers. That day changed everything. Sophie walked out with a new sense of purpose. The envelope and Margaret's phone numbers in her bag. The gray day now seemed bright with possibility. She placed a hand on her belly and smiled. The future wasn't so scary anymore. Labor was long and grueling. Sophie spent 15 hours in the hospital, gripping Margaret's hand. The older woman had become her rock in recent months. When Sophie heard her son's first cry, all the pain faded. She named him Ethan, a strong, healthy boy with his father's eyes and her stubborn chin. The early weeks of motherhood were tough. Sleepless nights, constant worry, and the weight of responsibility tested her. But Sophie was learning to be a mom, step by step. Margaret, like a true grandmother, was there for everything. The money she'd given went to hairstyling courses. Twice a week, while Ethan slept, Sophie studied new techniques. You're more than a good stylist, her teacher said. You have a gift, and now you have the strength to prove it. Sophie also tackled legal matters. A lawyer advised her she could fight for child support from James. The process was slow, but she was determined. Each day taught her independence. Ethan wasn't just her son, he was her reason, her drive. At night, as she rocked him, she whispered, "We'll make it, little one." Together, the courses opened new doors. Sophie learned modern coloring techniques, trendy cuts, and how to work with all hair types. Her talent shone brighter. Teachers praised her creativity and care. Money was still tight, but she took side jobs to stay afloat. She realized only she could change her life. One day, a well-known stylist noticed her work during a course. "You see people," he said, flipping through her portfolio. "Hair isn't just hair, it's about making people feel confident, beautiful." The legal fight for support continued. James resisted, but Sophie's lawyer was sharp, and the evidence was clear. Each court visit, each document, made her stronger. By year's end, Sophie felt like a new woman, bold, ready to face anything. Ethan grew healthy and curious. Her career was taking off. Her future bright. She was becoming the woman she'd always wanted to be. Sophie took a deep breath outside a small law office, clutching a folder of documents. Today was big, a step toward securing Ethan's future. Her lawyer, Claire, greeted her warmly. "The papers are ready," Claire said, spreading them out. Birth certificates, medical records, proof of her relationship with James, it was all there. At the same time, Sophie's career was soaring. The courses Margaret paid for taught her cutting-edge styling techniques. Her rented chair at a local salon was gaining a loyal clientele. People loved her skill and the warmth she brought. James, hearing about the lawsuit, fought back. His lawyer sent harsh letters. But Sophie stood firm. "I need Ethan to know his father exists," she told Claire, "and to get what he deserves." Margaret helped with Ethan during meetings and shared wise advice. The legal battle dragged on, but Claire's expertise kept things moving. Sophie felt her strength grow daily. A year ago, she was scared and lost. Now, opportunities were everywhere. Ethan was her heart, her reason to keep going. One evening, tucking him in, she felt proud. The scared woman from a year ago was gone. Her tears now were of strength, of triumph. The court date was set for next month. Sophie prepared carefully, gathering every detail. Her eyes shone with confidence. The hardest hurdles were behind her. Ahead lay a life built by her own hands, with love for her son. Sunlight poured into Sophie's first salon. Her dream made real. White walls, sleek mirrors, stylish chairs, every detail showed her hard work. Ethan, now 2, was a lively toddler, playing in a corner set up just for him. Margaret had helped not just with money, but with belief in Sophie's strength. Today was special, the salon's grand opening. Sophie's hands moved confidently, arranging tools, adjusting decor. She thought back to when she felt small, pregnant, and alone. Now, she was a business owner, a skilled stylist, a proud mom. Her lawyer called with news. The court ruled in our favor. Claire said. James has to pay support. Relief washed over Sophie. It wasn't about the money, it was about Ethan's rights. Later, a new friend, Lisa, a counselor from a personal growth class, stopped by. You've changed, Lisa said, admiring the salon. Not just outside. Your energy is different. And it was true. Sophie had gone from a scared girl to a woman who built her own world. That evening, as Ethan napped, she looked at her business plans. A photo of her son. And her client book. A text came from Mark, a kind man who owned a nearby cafe. He wanted to meet, maybe discuss a partnership. Sophie smiled. She was ready, not just for work, but for love, without losing herself. Ethan was her treasure, her purpose. Her success was her victory over hardship. Her transformation was complete, but a new chapter was just beginning. Strong, confident, free. Sunlight danced across the room as Sophie, holding 5-year-old Ethan, gazed out the window. Her salon was now a thriving business with 4 locations in town. She hadn't just survived, she'd won. Her husband, Daniel, an engineer, loved her and Ethan completely. He supported her every dream. A sudden call broke her thoughts. It was James. Hello, she said coolly. Sophie, I want to talk, he said, his voice shaky. She smirked. Years of legal fights were done. Ethan carried her last name, not the father who rejected him. I'm listening, she said calmly. I saw your salon. Congrats, he said, sounding lost. Sophie glanced at Ethan, her living proof of her strength. James's voice was that of a man adrift, but she stood tall. Margaret, now like a second mother, often said, you made yourself. And she had. Every choice, every step, was hers. Her eyes landed on a framed photo, her, Ethan, and Margaret at the first salon's opening. Mom, can I go play with Dad? Ethan asked, eyes pleading. Daniel grinned, winking at Sophie. They were a real family. The one she dreamed of. She thought back to that day. Pregnant and terrified. It wasn't the end, it was her beginning. Her journey to herself, to happiness. Her story was one of triumph, of a woman's unbreakable spirit and endless love. Ethan ran off with Daniel, and Sophie stood alone, smiling softly. Her life was her victory, built on her strength, her love, her will.